Good morning. I'm Liz Donley. I am the Grants and Contracts Manager at the Charlotte Harbor National Estuary Program. The Babcock Ranch Preserve is in need of developing a business management plan, and in January we are holding a workshop to work on that document. This will give you an idea of where Babcock Ranch is located. If you go outside and sort of look to the east, you'll be looking towards Babcock Ranch. It's buffered on one side by the Webb Wildlife Management Area and on the other side the Fish Eating Creek easement. It is a great wildlife corridor, and as you know, it's 73,000 acres that are in public ownership. It was purchased in 2006 with a combination of funds from Florida Forever, the Lee County Conservation 2020, a NOAA CLIP grant, and there was also a small amount of private funds that were used towards the acquisition. None of those dollars actually went into purchasing the land, but they went into the activity of the purchase. The Babcock Ranch Preserve, which is the public portion of the land, is overseen by a 501c3 nonprofit board called Babcock Ranch, Inc. The statutory language that established the purchased and Babcock Ranch Preserve also established this nonprofit board. The Babcock Ranch Preserve is a public-private enterprise experiment, I think, when it comes to large land management in the state of Florida. The idea behind establishing the Babcock Ranch, Inc. was that we would continue having activities on the land as had been happening in the past, the ranching, farming, ecotourism, and those funds would then self-fund the conservation and restoration activities that needed to happen on the publicly owned lands. Currently, the Babcock Ranch Preserve is managed by a private entity, Babcock Ranch Management LLC, and they are in the second 5-year management agreement. The current management agreement expires in 2016. And so the nonprofit board, BRI, Babcock Ranch, Inc., needs to be ready to manage the lands in 2016. So this is the actual Babcock Ranch Preserve Act, and as you can see, there's quite a few things that the board is supposed to be doing at one time. You're supposed to be protecting and preserving the environmental, agriculture, scientific, geologic, watershed, fish and wildlife, but we're also supposed to be providing for multiple use of the property, and also it allows for sustained yield of renewable surface resources. And we're supposed to sustain the ecologic and economic integrity of the property and allow the business of the ranch to continue. So there's a number of different activities that are going on simultaneously, and under the statute, they're to continue. This is the enabling language about the 501c3. I just wanted you to see that we're also dealing with the bureaucracy of statutory and administrative rules. So the current activities out there on Babcock Ranch Preserve are cattle operations, the feeder calves, so they also cull some of the cows and some of the bulls. There's pine harvesting going on out there. There's no more cypress harvesting. There's tenant farming for vegetables. There's some limited hunting that's relatively recent. The Cypress Lodge is used for business meetings. Babcock Wilderness Adventures is still going forward, and there's some limited hiking opportunities out there. So the issue is the Babcock Ranch, Inc. must be prepared to assume full management responsibilities of the preserve in 2016. And these are our challenges as we currently understand them. And there may be more challenges that we don't recognize. So the idea here is if you all have any thoughts on how to meet these challenges, we welcome them. So we have to balance the statutory requirements. We have to allow for recreational opportunities out there. We have to make sure that we are restoring, enhancing, not disrupting habitat, but we also have to allow for the economic activities out there, ranching, farming, the ecotourism. There is no dedicated financial support for this property. They have not received any earmarks or budget from the governor. We've requested a minimal amount of funding over the last couple of years to be able to pay for administrative support, and we have been unsuccessful. There is some funding coming in from the activities that occur on the ranch, but that money at this point is helping to reimburse for the management that's being performed by the private company. And they actually have donated some funds towards the management of the property. So there's no staff. There has been, because we're in these 5-year terms for management, there's been an emphasis on near-term planning, and because of that, comprehensive long-term planning has suffered. There's the issue of compatibility of the proposed activities. There are 13 species of endangered, threatened, and special interest out there. We know that we need to accommodate the equestrian community. We haven't been able to do that right now. There is a conflict between hiking on the land and the farm vehicles. We've been told that farm vehicles, because they're not out on the roads, are not, their brakes aren't as good. And so if you've got people hiking on the trails that the farm vehicles are using, there's a conflict there. Liability coverage for the activities. Because of the way we were formed, we seem to fall outside of all the statutory protections for activities on the ranch. And this might call for some new language in the statute to make sure that we have some liability coverage for some of these activities. We have adjacent land uses. To the east on the preserved lands, there's an anticipation that there's going to be a community built. We know that we're part of wildlife corridor that we need to take into consideration. There's always that wildlands interface with private homes for prescribed burns, that sort of thing. Multiple parties must review and approve our plans. We are, as I said, a public-private partnership, so not only does the Babcock Ranch, Inc. board have to review any plan that would come forward, but FWC has a seat at the table, DEP, Department of Forestry, Lee County, of course, Charlotte County, and then the private citizens that are involved. So it just makes things take a little bit longer because there's so many other state agencies involved and other, on the local level that we need to accommodate, take into consideration, and incorporate. And finally, Babcock Ranch, Inc. has to operate under the government and the sunshine rules, which is hasn't been a burden. It's just something that people need to be aware of. We have to notice the meeting, so it takes a minimum of 10 days to notice the meeting. We have to, if we have a conference call, we need to make sure that we can accommodate anybody calling in, that all the materials are out in time, and that the board can't discuss with each other. Like today, if there were another board member here, I couldn't discuss with them any of these issues because that wouldn't allow for the public to be participating in that discussion. So some additional challenges is there are 2 plans in place right now. There's a recreation plan that was finalized in October of 2009, and there was the management plan for the preserve, which was approved in July 2008. And finally, the Babcock Ranch, Inc. has bylaws that it operates under, so any business plan also has to be compatible with that. Or if any of these other plans need to be amended, those amendments need to be identified, and we have to go through the process to have that happen. So finally, we're seeking suggestions from all of you. If you know of any experts, that would be good to participate in the January workshop. If they have any either topic area information that would be helpful to us. If you are aware of any existing plans that address similar challenges, and they don't necessarily have to be in Florida. And finally, if you have any ideas yourself on how to meet these challenges, like I said, either you can email me, you can put it on a Post-it note. If you have any ideas that you'd like me to share with everybody else, I can do that at the end of the day. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. The current funds are coming from the activities that are occurring on the ranch. So the tenant farmers pay a lease fee, so those lease fees are going back to paying for the management on the ranch. There's some grazing leases on the land. The Babcock Wilderness Adventures pays a fee. There are there's at least one cell tower that has a lease out there, and those funds are also coming in. Right, but it comes to less. I think it comes to less than $200,000. Yes. You want me to summarize? You mean the one that talks about the Babcock Ranch Inc., the board? It talks the board was required under the statute to be established as a 501c3 nonprofit, and it calls out who sits on the board. It's a 9-member board. Lee County has a seat. Charlotte County has a seat. The governor has appointees. The FWC, DEP, DAX. Is this helpful?
Thank you, Ms.